Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Fahad, and today we're going to talk about whether or not the JET program is worth it. So before we dive into the details, just a quick high-level overview of what the JET program is. It's called the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, and it's a government-funded program by which you can go live and work in Japan as an English teacher for up to 5 years. You apply in the program like around fall, I want to say, like October timeframe is when the application opens up. You apply, you find out whether or not you have an interview by the end of like January, I think around that time frame. You give the interview like in the February time frame, and by the end of March, early April, you should find out whether or not you got accepted. You could be accepted or waitlisted. So you, through the application process, you can actually kind of write down like this is where I'd like to live and work, but in the end ultimately it is a random process. So you could be like in a city like a like a Kyoto, Tokyo, or something like that, or you could just be in the countryside somewhere. So it is random, so that's something to keep in mind. And if you are interested in the program, I'm sure you can Google and find out a lot of information, or you can also check out my series on how to get accepted into the JET program. It was recorded a while ago, like several years back, but I still think it holds pretty much completely true even today. Like the process, I don't think has changed really that much. So okay, so the JET program, comparing teaching through the JET program versus other, maybe ALT programs or even Eikaiwa job opportunities, what are the real differences? What are the advantages and disadvantages? So honestly, if you can get accepted in the JET program, I really believe it's the best out of all the options because it's government funded, so it's secure. You're not going to have any possibility of like sketchy business that a lot of these privately owned corporations, they try to take advantage of a lot of applicants that are really just are desperate to come and work in Japan. So there can be some shady business for these non-government programs. They also do all the documentation for you. So if you are accepted, you just kind of fly in, go through the orientation, your visa stuff is done for you. You just got to send in the documents. Everything is literally done for you. So you don't have to worry about any complicated things or living conditions or anything like that. It's kind of all handled for you. So that's really, really nice about it. And the pay is honestly probably the best out of any other option you have available, unless you're going to like a university level, a university type job in which you actually have a full-time job. If you are an ALT for the Japan Exchange Teaching Program, you're going to have a better salary than anybody that's teaching at an Eikaiwa or a privately funded or a private type of ALT program. And we're talking about salary, so let's talk about salary. The JET program actually has this information listed on its website. You can check out, and I'll post it right here. So this is what the salary is for years 1 through 5 on the JET program. So as you can see, you actually have an incremental increase year by year, and honestly the biggest difference is from year 1 to year 2, as you can see right there. So but again, keep in mind this is gross amount, so you're gonna have taxes and health insurance and stuff cut out through from paycheck to paycheck, right? So I'll give you guys a personal example. So if you look at the third year salary, right, it's 3,900,000 yen, which is approximately, now just Google US or yen to USD conversion, which is approximately $35,906, right? So that's gross. Now, if you divide that by 12, you get about 325,000 yen. So that's about $2,992. And again, so from there, you're going to have taxes withdrawn. You're going to have health insurance withdrawn, all this stuff withdrawn. So by the time money actually hit my account, I was getting about $2,252 a month from the JET program itself. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, of course, depending on where you're living in Japan and what your Board of Education or city is covering for you, this could be way more than you actually need as far as expenses go, or this could be just the right amount. I don't think you're ever really going to be in a situation where you can't make ends meet. Now, I'm not considering, of course, like if you have commitments at home, if you have student loan payments and things like that. If you're living like, let's say in a city, like in a big city where the Board of Education or city isn't covering for your apartment, you've got your cell phone bills, you got all this stuff, plus you got like, let's say like a student loan payment, things might get a little sketchy. But even then, I mean, to be honest, because as American citizens, by the way, because we're tax-free for the first 2 years, you can, when you file your taxes, your income shows on the statement as $0. So if you do that and you basically file for an income based repayment program from your federal student loan company, they'll just defer your payments and just charge you interest. So you can just make a payment on the interest and really kind of save a lot of money that way. So that's just a little tip that I took advantage of for sure. Another thing to keep in mind is, although you're paying into the pension every paycheck, you do get a big old refund by the time you're back into your home country. Now the process is a little complicated. I might make that a video later. If somebody wants information, please mention it in the comments below. I can make a video on that as well. But essentially, you get 2 payments back when you move back and finish your contract. So to give you guys some perspective, I'll talk about what I ended up getting. Well, let me actually talk about what the process is first. So you have to have a kind of representative that you have somebody you trust, like a coworker or a friend or something like that, and then you come back to the States and you file all the necessary paperwork, and you will get a direct deposit for part of your pension account. So for example, I received $6,395.10 I did 3 years in the JET program, so that was for 3 years for a pension refund. Now, very important to keep in mind, there is no additional refund amount for year 4 and 5. So whether you're working on the JET for 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, you're gonna have the same refund. So that's very, very important. Now, kind of weird and really kind of annoying is that when you get that refund, they withhold an additional tax from that. So you have to have your representative back in Japan file a form or submission to get that tax refund refunded, and that goes to their account. Then they have to send it back to you. So really kind of a nuisance. But I ended up getting an additional $1,717.93 from that as well. So after 3 years, you kind of have like a nice savings there for you as well if you end up just blowing through everything. But don't do that. Definitely save. So that's important. So is it enough? Honestly, like I mentioned before, yeah, I really do think it's enough. Everyone's situation is different. Your mileage may vary depending on where you're located and stuff like that. But thinking of a typical situation where somebody comes in, they may have some student loan payments, but overall they live a responsible kind of budgeted life. I'm pretty sure you could do pretty much anything that you want. Travel and all that stuff as well, and also still save. So to give some perspective on my situation, I was living in Kyoto, the city of Kyoto, not just the prefecture. I was paying $600 for the apartment that I was living in, like I want to say $95. I'm speaking in dollars now, but $95 for my gym membership, about another $75 for my phone service, bills rounded up to about $100. And then food, groceries, and stuff like that, and I still managed to travel whenever I not whenever I wanted to, but travel a lot. I managed to go out and have fun with friends a lot. You really can. You just got to be as anybody should. You should just be responsible with your finances. Something about the finances there, it's changing now a little bit. Now they definitely have like apps and stuff like that, but before it was very much a cash-based society. It still is predominantly cash-based society, but now they take a lot more credit cards. But everything was managed through cash, ATMs, and stuff like that. So I'm not sure about y'all, but for me, I'm not as good as manually managing my cash. So that was a learning experience for me for sure. So again, if you live in a city, you're probably going to have a little bit higher end on the expenses, right? Especially if your city or board of education doesn't cover your apartment expenses. But if you live in the countryside, where your rent could be like up to free because they cover it completely, and the cost of living is super, super low, and your day-to-day isn't very... You may go out on the weekends every once in a while, but because things are so far away or such kind of a pain in the butt to do stuff, you might not go out as much and party as much or whatever. You end up saving quite a bit of money over the course of your time working on the JET program. So, so far we've talked about finances, right? We've talked about the situation of the JET program. We've talked about finances. And so the next thing I think is like the work environment, right? So that's where I think variability is kind of off the charts, right? Because you could have the perfect city, you could be in the exact place you want to be in, you could have a great apartment, but then you go and your working environment is not good, right? The teachers you work with aren't nice, or the students don't care, or whatever the situation may be. That's something, honestly, is very much a your mileage may vary type of situation. But even then, honestly, like if you're there, depending on your mindset, right? Like if you're there to live in Japan by means of teaching, then that could be a very hard situation for you. But if you're genuinely kind of taking joy and showing kind of motivation in work, then if not the teachers, at least the students will respond to you. Like, I think that's probably now I got lucky, and my coworkers for the most part were really really cool. All the people I worked with were really nice, and the teachers, or I'm sorry, the students that I was that I taught were also really really cool. So, to give you guys an example, by the time I was done, I got like tons of goodbye letters and stuff like that. I got, you know, all, I got all kinds of, thank you notes and stuff like that. Like a lot of cool things, because of the connection that I made with the students. And, that's where I think even if you don't have the best situation, if you try and connect with them, you could make the best of what you have, right? Obviously, you can't, if your teacher co-teacher sucks, then it sucks, right? So a lot of times people complain like, oh, it's like a tape recorder type situation, or I just kind of sit there in the corner, and that can happen. You really have to, in the end, you got to kind of flex with what the situation calls for, and that kind of, I know for me, when it was a, like a situation where I was just in the corner, I kind of gave the teacher the feedback afterwards. I was like, listen, I don't like doing this. I want to be more involved. I know you got blah, blah, blah. And it got to the point where I was honestly at the point where I was like, listen, if that's the case, I have other classes that I teach, and I'd rather just, focus my time prepping and doing stuff for those classes if you're only going to have me kind of sit in the corner and repeat stuff. And it worked. So, I mean, of course, I'm not saying that's always going to work, but if you have a reasonable person, they'll hear you. They'll try and consider what you're asking for and try and work with you to bring something to the table, right? So yeah, it really does depend. But student connections can very much happen, because no matter what the situation is, there's always going to be for the most part, most of the students are going to, not really pay attention or be sleepy or whatever in class, because I mean, it's class. When you were in school, I'm sure most people are just there because they have to be there, right? But you'll get the handful of students here and there that just love English and they want to communicate, or something like that. And those are the students that really kind of make the experience worth it, in my opinion. They did for me. And you also get to, I think pretty much everybody works in the ESS, the English Speaking Society, kind of after school extracurricular activity. It is a volunteer basis type thing, so you don't get paid for those hours. But so technically you can say no, but I highly, highly recommend, doing that. Usually it's only like a week, a couple times a week or something like that. And that's where you can really kind of just have conversations, bond with the students. You can really create the type of class or environment that you wanted to, in that situation. So I highly recommend doing that. But yeah, so connecting with the students can give even like a not ideal situation, kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel type deal, right? So for example, I would often like go and work out at the gym, at the school gym with like the rugby students, and teach them how to do different, workouts or whatever. So if you have a hobby that, whether it's like playing music or working out or doing sports or doing art, like because of club activities, you will have the opportunity, if you want, to really kind of connect with students on that level. And they're going to appreciate that. Like they're just happy to have you there, to be honest with you. I mean, there are some that are just like, they don't care or whatever. But if you try and make an effort, I'm pretty sure something is going to happen from that. Okay, so now we've talked about work environment, right? But now going beyond that, living in Japan, right? So when you're not working, you have hopefully a social life. Now, making friends in Japan, I'd like to think of it as like a two-part thing, because you can make foreigner friends and then you can make Japanese friends. Talking about foreigner friends, right? Like these would probably be the folks that are on JET program with you, maybe in your same class or whatever. There might be other foreigners you might meet through different social events, but if you make even the slightest bit of an effort, I really think it's possible to have some lifelong friends by the time you're done. I mean, from the time you land, right? You're in Tokyo for orientation for a couple of days. Then you take a car, train, or whatever to your destination, where you're going to be living. Then you get to a local orientation for that specific area that you're in. So you have a lot of opportunities to connect with other people on the JET program that you could end up being friends with. And In my experience, like there were Facebook groups and stuff like that that would often hold events. Like living in Kyoto, we often had like riverside events where it was like, get-togethers or whatever, all planned. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities to meet people just on the program itself, right? And of course, if you're, out and about, whether you go to bars or clubs or whatever, you're going to meet other foreign people and you can kind of really connect with them that way too. So a lot of opportunities to make friends that way. In addition to just extracurricular stuff, right? So like I said, I went to the gym regularly and I met a couple foreign friends there too. So definitely a lot of possibilities to make non-Japanese friends. Now, speaking of Japanese friends, this becomes a little bit harder because you may have heard that, Japanese people, connecting with Japanese people is infamously difficult just because, first of all, the language barrier, right? So unless you speak fluent Japanese, you probably have trouble communicating. There's the cultural barrier, like, even if you can speak Japanese, the way you act or the things that you do might make certain people just like, it might, I don't want to say uncomfortable because that implies something like negative, but it might just, they may not be able to kind of let their guard down because they're always wondering like, how do I act or something like that. So it's very possible to make a lot of Japanese like friends and like at an acquaintance level. It's extremely hard in my experience to have like deep connections with the Japanese people that you meet. In my experience, the best luck I've had with making Japanese friends are ones that speak English or have foreign country living experience because they're used to being around different cultures and they can kind of, they can just flex and kind of connect with you for who you are and what kind of culture you bring, and they can do the same on their end, and you can kind of bond that way. Whereas if, just think about it your way. Think about it from your perspective, right? From whatever country you might be from, you have no interest in, let's say, country A, and somebody from country A comes and they can't speak your language or whatever, and they try to talk to you. You might be nice and say, oh, that if they're asking for like directions, you can point them in the directions, but whatever the case may be, but it's hard to have like a real connection with them, right? I'm sure it's the flip side is also true. So that's how I used to think of it. I don't really like the stereotyping and the generalizing of all Japanese people being a certain way because that's just not right. But I will say it's significantly harder for a lot of cultural reasons. But that being said, if you want to make real Japanese friends, I highly recommend brushing up on some Japanese or using resources like meetup.com. That's a resource I use quite often just to have like, if I had like downtime and I was like, man, I really want to do something or hang out or meet some new people, I would go to English speaking events that meetup.com people on meetup.com had organized, and I met several people that way too. And those are people that are actively looking for English speaking conversation partners, friends, or whatever. So you can really kind of go right into that market of people that I think would connect with you and meet people that way. You can also just meet people through hobbies, right? So again, talking about the gym again, I met several Japanese friends that way where they were just at the gym working out and we struck up a conversation. Now, I am fluent in Japanese, so I had that advantage there. But if you're just doing your thing, right? Like, let's say you play guitar and you find some sort of social club and you start playing guitar. I think that would speak more and do more for you than your communication skills would. So using like leveraging your hobbies and stuff like that, your interests, and connecting with Japanese people that way, I definitely think you can still have some luck there, but it's going to be tough. So keep that in mind. So overall, I definitely do think the JET program is worth it. It's a little difficult to get into. It's quite difficult to get into if we're being honest, right? It's tough. Some places I've heard it's a lot easier, but whatever the case may be. But if you manage to get here and you kind of live within your means, right? You're not just living paycheck to paycheck because honestly, unless you've got like severe, like I don't want to discount anybody's situation that they may have stuff going on at home. But if like, let's say you just come, to Japan and all you have are like student loan payments or something like that, you can literally live perfectly fine, have travel and do stuff and have a really, really great experience that way. Socially, of course, I don't have to speak much about the food, right? I mean, the food you probably already know, the culture, the travel, the historical sites and everything like that. It's just such a fun, fulfilling experience, and you can really kind of try something new every single day. So in that regard, it's also worth it. Working environment is the place where I think it's really kind of I don't want to say hit or miss because it really isn't 50-50, right? For the most part, you'll at least have a couple teachers that you enjoy working with. Now, overall the vibe, might not be nice or whatever that you like. The living situation, you might be in the countryside and you're like, it's too inconvenient for me or something. But overall, your work environment kind of depends on what the situation is, but odds are you're going to have at least one or two teachers or classes that you really love and make up for a lot of it. Now, living in the countryside, depending on who you are, right? I know some friends that truly loved living in the countryside because, they like the nature, the hiking, all that good stuff. And some people, couldn't handle it just because it wasn't for them. So again, that's where a little bit of risk comes in as well. That's not to say that you can't take advantage of holidays and weekend times to, take a night bus or something like that and go to a city or because it's going to be organized not only by city where you're in, but also like prefecture. So if there's like a, jet event going on, like in the city of your prefecture, right? Like travel there for a weekend and just kind of make some friends there or just hang out over there. So take advantage of the free time. Japan has a lot of like monthly national holidays. So you will have quite a bit of extra days off that I know, especially my American friends, we're not quite used to. For me, honestly, it was 100% worth it. One of the most memorable and best experiences of my life. I'm back in Texas now, but I do plan on moving back to Japan relatively soon to live there again. And that's how much of an impact it made on me. So, I would do it. I don't think I'd do it again just because I'm at a different stage in my life, but I would definitely live in Japan again. And that was because of what the JET program was able to offer me as far as life experiences. So, yeah. So that's all I have to say about whether or not the JET program is worth it. Your mileage may vary for things like living conditions or living situation and working conditions, but otherwise financially it's totally worth it. Depending on your own situation, but it can turn into something really, really special if you allow it to be, right? And if you make that situation happen. So definitely worth it. If you are able to, I highly recommend applying to the JET program and living in Japan that way. And hopefully you guys will have as great of an experience as I did. So that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And if you made it this far, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I know I haven't uploaded in a really long time, but I am back in the States, and I'm trying to turn this channel into something that's still worthwhile as far as content goes. That being said, I do study kanji every single evening around 10:30 Central Time. So join me if you'd like on YouTube Live, where I'm just studying and we can just chat and have a good time. If you guys have any questions about the JET program, about experiences, or if you just want me to have just have a random question about Japan, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to address them as they come. And that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.